Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to the open board meeting, and I'll call the meeting to order. Today we acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. So are there any declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Not seeing any. We have a closed session resolution. Christine, I believe you were going to speak to that.
No, I think it's, isn't it Michael House and the Special Olympics?
Yes.
The mayor
Okay,
was
that's Cam.
moving those forward.
That's the mayor that's moving that motion,
Oh,
Mr.
okay,
Chair.
sorry. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it doesn't bother me at all. Sure, moved by myself, seconded by Christine, that $500 be allocated to Michael House and $1,000 be allocated to the Special Olympics, coming from the community account.
Okay. And that's seconded, I think you said, by Christine Billings. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. There are no presentations, delegations. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the open meeting on April 21st? Christine, moved by Cam, seconded. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Consent, part one is consent agenda. Do I have a motion for that? Mayor Guthrie, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Billings, thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, let's move down to part two, discussion. And under 7.6 of part two, we have operating capital budget Q1 quarterly variance report. And Chief, I believe are you gonna lead that one off?
Sure, yeah, well, and yes, Mr. So can you hear me? Just thumbs up so I know.
Yep.
Okay. So I just wanted to, really, the board has the report in front of them. So it's really important. I wanted to thank Lisa and so many other of our folks who kind of build these documents and track this for us. But all areas right now, as of Q1, are in green for the year. So we're not in a position to kind of forecast a surplus deficit either way, but as you can see, all areas are green, so things are kind of progressing as we would expect. Absent any specific questions from the board that's not answered by the document, I'm not sure I have any more to update on.
Not seeing. Oh, Mayor Guthrie.
Well, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious. I just wanted to make sure that since this is touching on the current kind of surplus variance and so on, is there any kind of commentary that maybe Lisa I could ask through you to Lisa, just about the year-end variance from 2021? And anything that maybe the board should just be aware of in regards to new information or anything like that that might have kind of come forward that we should be aware and concerned about as we move forward?
Sure. So I'll touch on that. So obviously, like we talked about at our last board meeting, the goal has always been to establish an operating contingency so we can mitigate unforeseen changes. That includes changes in debt revenues, et cetera, et cetera. I know that as a service, as we evolve towards the implementation of our next generation 911 platform, since our last board meeting, we have had conversations with the city with respect to our obligations there. And we're kind of in conversations right now to make sure that we can cover the capital costs that's going to be required. Obviously, as a service, we're the PSAP, Public Safety Answering Point, for the entire community. And that's one of the things right now that in the last month we've identified that is an area that we're going to have to identify funds to make sure that we can, working with the city, incorporate the funds to pay for the implementation of that capital.
Okay, and I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth, so please just make sure I'm saying the right thing here with my comments. But so a little while ago, we were more informed at that time about potential reviews from the province in regards to grants that could be a concern. Some other operational impacts that may be a concern where the surplus would be required. This is now new information in regards to the new next generation 911. And that new information you are not only relaying to us today, but as you said, you've spoken to the city, and there's an obligation there to make sure that large capital project that has to be done.
Yes, as you recall, we had lots of communications over the last months about the funding of the PSAP. So we've recently kind of modernized the city's contribution to our dispatch center. The dispatch, they ingest all our 911 calls for the community, in addition to doing other internal dispatching for members, etc. So we have kind of modernized that after quite some time having not. Now, to incorporate next generation 911, there's a significant capital investment that's going to be required.
Okay. And my last question on this is, once the next generation 911 is, implemented, is there any type of commentary back about what the impact of that is from an operational standpoint? Is there a high level information in regards to that?
Well, so all of these things are, which is why, again, we talked about having that our request that the board supported to increase from 1% to 5% our operating reserve, so we can mitigate all these things. So right now, working with the city, we've identified the best estimate for the next generation 911 capital investment is around 600 grand. That's the best estimate. It could be higher or lower, but in addition to that, as we implement the next generation 911, which will allow the community to engage via text message, there may be operating impacts from that as well. For example, are there more? Do we require additional FTEs to intake now all the calls that people can contact 911 via text? So these are all unknowns that we don't yet have data to provide an excellent estimate with respect to potential FTE implications. But that, in addition to grant fluctuations, in addition to, we could have major investigations that have obviously expenditures for overtime and things like that. So that's the whole idea of the contingency. We'd like to be able to mitigate these internally, so we don't have to go to the city or our taxpayer, our community, and it gives us that ability to navigate those internally. I hope, Lisa, am I capturing this? Do you have anything to add?
Nope, you captured it perfectly. Couldn't have said it better.
All right, well, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No.
Okay, then I will end by saying that I really appreciate the opportunity for you to explain that a bit more for me and for everyone to understand what the service is facing and the potential risks in regards to that. So I fully understand and appreciate the kind of the year-end surplus discussion a little bit more. I appreciate you answering those questions. And with that, I'm happy to move the current report that we're talking about for the first quarter variance and such, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Seconded by Christine Billings. And all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now, Chief, it's time for your monthly report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to my monthly report, so first I wanted to start off and I may be uncharacteristically brief this month in my monthly report, but I wanted to start off. You may have seen a media release in the last couple of days where the two of our members, Constable Angela Mitchell and Constable Rob Panic, were nominated for awards. And so essentially the Ontario Police Association, the Police Association of Ontario, they facilitate the annual Police Services Hero of the Year Awards to recognize sworn police officers and civilian police employees who go above and beyond the call of duty. I won't reread the media release, but I wanted to highlight publicly and for the board and our community the excellent work done by Special Constable Mitchell and Constable Panic. It is kind of an example of the dedication that all of our members have to supporting each other in our community. And I wanted to congratulate them and make sure they know how proud we are of them, their nomination, and the work they do. And I think I would be remiss not to also thank the PAO for taking the time to recognize our members and police officers throughout the province. So that's my first update. I'll stop there if anybody has any questions.
Not seeing any.
No. And then my only other update, I wanted to remind the board that I believe it was a couple of months ago, we introduced the community to Connor, our new downtown resource officer. Connor will be coming back in June. But I just wanted to remind the board, Connor will be coming back, but also to always give you as the board, and by extension the community, an opportunity if they have any questions now about our downtown resource officer program, Connor's role, any of those types of things. I'm happy to kind of ask that question to give anybody a chance to ask us for updates, or Connor will be back. We promised Connor to be coming back with some data. I know that year to date, there's been over 200 different instances where either that includes patrols or community engagements or other things, but I know how important this topic is to the community. So just to give you as the board an opportunity, if you didn't want to wait till Connor got here next month.
Mayor Guthrie.
Yeah, thanks. And through you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I appreciate the opportunity, actually, I'm looking forward, obviously, to what Connor has to say to us all next month. There has been, some commentary that's kind of, I would say escalated a little bit in regards to, especially our downtown. Better weather is here, and that sometimes can be seasonal in one way. But can you, and this is where I think both myself and maybe the community needs to just understand it a little bit more. Can you just try to detail for me what it means when we have created the new downtown unit? Because it's not all on Connor, but can you just operationally kind of just try to lay that out for people to understand how that looks and feels currently?
Sure. Well, and before I do that, I really think it's important that in all of these discussions, particularly about our downtown, that we have to make sure we're having holistic and sophisticated discussions on how we support our downtown community. That includes business leaders, residents, visitors, and some of our most vulnerable. We have members of our community who struggle with homelessness, mental health, or addictions. So anytime we're having this discussion, it's got to be holistic, has to be kind and compassionate, and sophisticated to make sure it's not. We're all mindful of the fact this is not just up to Connor or the police. And I really want to start with that.
Yeah, could I just jump in, Chief? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I totally 100% agree with that, and I want to make sure that you know my position in asking the question is from that same position as you just laid out too. I've heard you and previous chiefs and other chiefs say, issues like this, we cannot arrest our way out of these issues. 100% agree with that. It is a holistic team approach. But yeah, my question again, same foundation that you're coming from, is basically just what is the downtown policing unit from an operational point of view look and feel like, just so I can understand it and others can understand it a bit better. knowing that that is not the the magic potion that fixes all the issues that are down there. Totally recognizing that.
Okay. So yeah. So essentially, Connor is full time. So Connor is a full time community resource officer who is designated to the downtown. So Connor's number one priority is the downtown. He spends all of his time engaging in the downtown. In addition to that, we have 4 officers who've been assigned to support Connor in their role, in his role. So they've each come from one of our platoons. Working with our BIA, we recently made some changes. So these seconded officers used to come in for 6 months at a time. Now, to have some more continuity, the seconded members come in for a year, and their rotations are staggered. So they rotate 2 in January, 2 in June. So there's not a churn all at the same time. Now, with respect to each of those members, you have 4 members, one from each platoon, who then support Connor, but they don't all work at the same time. So I don't think it's not like there's Connor plus 4 people who are always on at the same time, because that's like we say, but we don't have the resources to have 4 or 5 people constantly in the downtown, 18 hours a day, 365 days a year. So, and I think it's also important that we kind of calibrate expectations in the sense that if one of those, whether it be Connor or if it's one of those other members, if they're working and they get called to a call in the downtown or a priority 1 very big emergency out of the downtown, that then they're engaged. So they're not always going to be, because they take calls for service. So there may be, and maybe that calibration helps as to why people don't always see those members in the downtown, because if they get called to assist someone, then they're occupied, which is, and one of the things, and we've worked on this, and I will continue to kind of express how important this is, but at any point, whether it be in our downtown community or anywhere, but if someone finds themselves in a situation where they fear for their safety or someone else's, it's so important that they contact our dispatch or 911. So 824-1212 or 911 in emergency, so that the call can immediately be assessed and prioritized in the moment. Not try to call Connor or not try to call someone else, because if they're engaged or they're not working that day, public safety kind of response is best assessed in the moment by our dispatch unit, so they can send units there. Because in addition to Connor and our resource officers, we have other officers who work 24/7 throughout the day. So I'm hoping that's helping a little bit, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Gates, do you have any thoughts?
That's good. Oh, sorry, I have a follow-up, but go ahead, Daryl.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, just in addition to that, that's the minimum amount of officers that we have in the downtown area. During peak periods, for instance, I see Inspector Scott Rowers on the call here as well. The emergency response team will go down into that area as well. So on a Friday night, Thursday night, a little bit busier down there. Sometimes a little bit more issues to deal with. So we will add resources into the core area as the crowds maybe go up a little bit. So we kind of gauge it with the flow of what the calls are, what the people are, who's where, and we'll augment the downtown on and off. So we do have the 4, as the chief described. They're dedicated to there. They have a job to get to know the people down there, get to know the shop owners, get to know who associates down there, and they also get engaged with the social services down there to help people. So the strategy, I appreciate you may not see boots on the ground all the time, but that's probably because they're busy. They're taking calls for service and helping people out.
Okay, great. Chief, I just want to pick up on one extra thing through you, Mr. Chair, that you said. If there's something in the moment that is a safety concern, I think I'm trying to underline the word safety. That's the time to call 911 in emergency or the other number. But most of these issues are not sometimes safety concerns. Can you just describe to me where a policing response is not not something that really is required. And as you mentioned, it's the social services side of it. And it's important, I think, for me to understand that role, and where policing is really required. The police are required and not.
Yeah, so well, it's difficult for me to know. It's kind of an independent assessment each time based on a situation. So I can't. But I think what it's important to recognize, um, as a police service, as a police chief, as our police members, we understand and fully appreciate and realize this is a collaborative discussion with the city, with the county, with our provincial partners. So when we have these types of discussions, like we really have to have a sophisticated evaluation and discussion and understand how do we best support each other as in our downtown community, those who are most vulnerable, and other stakeholders. I don't know if we do this, but I certainly think it's probably appropriate to always be looking at what services do we currently provide? Are they appropriately aligned, coordinated, to make sure that those who are struggling with mental health or social issues get support from mental health clinicians or social service providers? Or do we
Yeah.
understand what all the programs are available? Are they coordinated and aligned? Like that's an assessment that, to be honest, I think that's probably better looked at from a city or county level. But I think it's vital to realize we have to be kind and compassionate and realize not all of this. We're a key stakeholder as a police service, but we rely on everyone to work together. So we could talk a lot about this, Mr. Mayor, but
No,
I'm hoping I'm helping.
well, that's okay. I appreciate it. I'll just end on this, and I appreciate the time, everybody, because I think it's important for me to understand it a little bit better, and the community too, if they're listening. I think I, I think my frustration is somewhere where the community, by accident, they don't understand the different stakeholders and the different jurisdictions and the different who does what. And as we've seen over the years, everyone just always goes to the police. That something doesn't look right or something's not happening correctly. And so where do they go? They just go to the police. It's like a default. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And we all do it kind of innocently because it's like, well, there's the officer, or I can call 911. And my frustration, I guess, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is just like social services, housing, addictions, that is the County of Wellington responsibility. And those social services that are provided by the county, really that conversation I think needs to be happening, as you said, with other stakeholders, but big time with them. And then, of course, there's the provincial government, as you stated, as another partner when it comes to it's healthcare, mental health. That's their jurisdiction. And so it comes at it from all different areas. And I think it's important that the policing aspect is about public safety and the public safety issue. And most of the issues that we are experiencing are actually not that. They are homelessness, addictions, mental health. And I just want to say I appreciate Connor so much, and the other four that you mentioned, well, everyone that's involved in trying their best to do what they are trained and their job description is to do. As the other stakeholders, in my view, they need to step up. They're the ones that need to step up on this. And so, anyways, maybe we'll have to have those joint conversations with everyone, because it's important that the community understands this is not all on the police, and that's my opinion, Mr. Chair. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for letting me ask some questions.
Sure.
Okay.
And if I can just conclude, I think that our members, there would be the first to say that we're not clinicians or mental health providers. they often, the calls we go to, and I've said this publicly many other places, and I know the community's heard me say this before, but often the calls we attend are symptomatic of other areas that we haven't proactively funded as a society, as a city, as a community, as a country, so that our members are often responding because they quite literally are the only ones available to go. And we do it many, many, many times a day. We do our very, very best. And so I appreciate you recognizing it, because like we are the ones who answer the call 24/7, 365 days a year. Probably enough said.
Okay. Just a quick question, Chief. Do the downtown business owners have meetings and invite you to give information similar to what you're giving here?
They do. So the BIA, like some of the changes that we've made in relation to, like I said before, the staggering, the duration of the secondments has been a function of that engagement. But I would really invite, like I would love to have those meetings include not only me, but maybe a representative from the county, a representative from the city, because I think our community, both those who need the services the most, as well as our businesses and residents, they deserve to know how all these things are aligned and coordinated. And to be honest, I think all of us should we exist to serve our community, and whatever roles and that includes boards, departments, agencies, organizations. And so I would love it if those meetings could include me in addition to some of these other leaders from key stakeholder groups, because I think our community, they deserve to know that there's a plan and there's alignment. And if there's not a plan and there's not an alignment, we need to build a plan.
That sounds like a great option. So I think we can speak more about this and how we can make that happen going forward. We're obviously not gonna set that up today, but
and if I can, Mr. Chair, to interrupt, and I'm sorry, but I want to close with saying if there's a word, these have to be sophisticated, compassionate, kind discussions that we understand that there's many complex variables, but there are some of our most vulnerable. They deserve to have an advocate from all of us leading different organizations. In addition to them, our business owners, our residents, we need to have a plan. And that plan can't just be about the police.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions for the chief on this? Comments? No?
Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Chief, did you have other not issues, but other things to bring up?
No, Mr. Chair, absent any other questions, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any new business from board members? Not seeing any. Section 8 are information items. I'll let you read those at your leisure. And now I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Unless, okay, thank you. Christine, Councillor Billings, yeah. Mayor Guthrie, seconded. And all in favor, that's passed. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we'll see you at our next meeting. And meantime, I think the chief and I will have some discussions on what I just mentioned. So have a great Victoria Day holiday, everyone. In case you forgot, Monday's a holiday. Just thought I'd